Hello, in this video I'm going to show you beginning to end how to make an exfoliating soap pocket. I guess is how I'm going to call it. I'm actually using the Red Heart Scrubby yarn. I've already lost the paper for it, but that's what it is. And here's what this yarn is. Yarn is just plastic, but this is what it looks like. It can be a little frustrating at times to deal with, but I absolutely love how this turned out. It makes such an awesome lather when you use it. But what we're going to do is we're going to do a chain cast on for 10 pegs. You make a slip knot, working yarn behind your first peg. Now this may be a little more difficult than normal just because of the way the material itself just wants to work. So there we go. We got the first one. And each one you take that loop, put behind the next peg, and run the working yarn through it. The tail end we just forget about. We'll tie that in later. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and for the 10th one I'm just going to put the loop on that last peg. So here is the cast on for that. Your cast on's done. So the way this project works, we actually work it from the top. We're actually going to make a big stripe, just one big piece, kind of like a scarf. It'd be a very horrible scarf, but so this doesn't curl. We're actually going to use just a garter brim just for a couple rows because it doesn't take much. So we will E-wrap the first row. So all 10 pegs. And you're going to take your bottom loop on every peg over top that top loop. And the clicking noise in the background would be the dog. She's pacing. I don't know what she wants. Okay, so we E-wrapped a row. Now we will purl a row. Which, if you're unfamiliar with the purl stitch, I do have videos that can show you better how to do it. So for the purl stitch, let me take the working yarn. Try to pull this out of the way so you're not looking at it. Okay. Put your hook down through the loop on the peg, pull up, take the loop that's on the peg off, and add your new loop on it. Show you on a couple more. It's kind of awkward to do on this loom. Not this loom, but with this yarn. Alright, ignore that. Okay, so you will purl a row, you will E-wrap your first row, purl your second row, E-wrap your third row, and purl your fourth row. That will be enough to keep it from curling. So I've got the brim done here, whatever you want to call it, and I didn't want mine to, I am left-handed, so it's easier for me to do the next part going in this direction than it is going in this direction. Oh, sorry, going that way instead of going this way. So you can actually take and just do another E-wrap row to get you back to your first peg if you want. That's optional. That one extra E-wrap row is not going to be noticeable at all because you don't really see the design. Like, I'll hold it out, I'll stretch it. I'm doing a single drop stitch with just one row of E-wrap in between. That's all the body of this is. And how you do your single drop stitch is, you want to zoom this in. Okay, hold on, let me adjust this a little better. There we go. Okay, so you take your working yarn, you wrap around your first peg, then you wrap around it again, you wrap around your second peg, you're going to take the bottom over the top on the second peg. This, you're going to take the top off. You're going to wrap this one again, wrap the second. Take the bottom over the top, take the top off. Wrap first and second. Bottom over the top on the second one and your top off on the first one. Which if it's easier for you, you can actually do that second part when you get to the end of the row. Or you can do it as you go. It doesn't really make a difference either way. But what this is doing is you are creating what is called a drop stitch. Which is very obvious name because you're just taking you're dropping a stitch off the peg. And you take that off. Take that off. And now, hold on. Now you can see these loops back here, but if you pull on that, you'll see it'll all stretch down. Okay, so we need that last one there to be a drop. So I want to go back one, we've dropped it. Now the next row we just E-wrap, and the E-wrap is basically to lock all those drop stitches in because they're very, very loose at this point. And so I like to do a single stitch. I can zoom out some. Oh, wrong way. I like to do some type of a stitch that is like an E-wrap or a purl or a knit, you know, something like that. Just to lock these in, because see how loose these are? And I'm just doing a single drop stitch. What a double drop stitch would be if you wrap the peg twice. But all you do is, yes, and this yarn likes to stick to itself, so it works a little better if you pull some of it out and leave it just sit there to work on. But that's all the body of this is you do one row of drop stitches followed by an E-wrap row, which this row I'll take the dropped ones off after. Just kind of show you a secondary way. You just E-wrap 2 pegs, take the bottom off the second peg, E-wrap. You'll be re-E-wrapping that one peg again. And we go all the way to the end. Oops, there we go. And then you just go back here and just take that second loop off of each of these pegs. So whichever way you prefer to do it, both ways are fine. I just always stretch it after each one. See, you can already see your first drop stitch there. And this second row back, I want my drop stitch, drop that one down, which you don't have to do that right there. That's completely optional. I'm just trying to match it up with the other side, but even doing that, I'm still ending up with an extra stitch. So you E-wrap back, take your bottoms over your tops, then you'll do another row of drop stitch, and you do this until it is, I don't have my tape measure. Alright. You do this until I believe the measurement was 10 inches long on the loom, and then you will do you know, purl a row, E-wrap a row, purl a row, E-wrap a row, and then I'll show you your cast off. Okay, so I did the body about 8 inches long, and then I did E-wrap row, purl row, E-wrap row, purl row, and E-wrap row. So the last 5 rows were garter stitch. I'm just going to pull out a bit of the string and cut it. This stuff kind of mashes together so much. I'm not really doing any special cast off. I'm just doing the sewn cast off, which you cut the string at least 2 to 3 times the length of the piece that you're sewing up. Oops. Let me zoom this in a bit. And I take the working yarn and you pull it through each loop. Well, the loop on each peg 2 times, and then you go to the next. I know it sounds horrible, but there we go. Try to hold it up as I do it. See, the stuff wants to kind of stick, so this is really one of the best cast-offs that I could think to do, because it seems to go the fastest. It's just sometimes you got to figure out which strand is what because they want to kind of lock. There it is. And you just take your hook, you pull the string through each loop 2 times. Then you take it all off the loom, and then we will sew it off the loom. This is what it looks like. Now at this point, you sew it into a little pocket. You want to leave enough of the flap to cover the top. So what you do is you just take this yarn. Typically I would say take a needle. Well, here, I got one of these ones. I'll try. I'm going to try this. Cut some yarn here. And these stitches don't stand out bold enough to really worry about a certain way to close it off. You just want to sew down this side, sew down that side, weave in your ends. This does have a front and a back to it. If you see, the one side will be kind of flat and the other side would be kind of bubbled up. If you like more exfoliating, you'd want to do the bubbled up side out. But it's up to you. Both sides will work just fine. But whichever side you want as your outside, you want to fold it the opposite way to sew up the sides here. And leave some of this out so you can weave in and just sew back and forth until you're down to the end. If you cut your yarn long enough, you can actually just kind of weave it through this and then sew up the other side without having to cut another piece of string. Yep. You see, it doesn't have to be anything special. These stitches really can't be seen. So there's the one side, which I'm just going to kind of weave in and out down here at the bottom since my string is long enough. Kind of pull tight and then stretch it out as much as it will stretch, because this is going to stretch. My first one, I did 15 stitches wide. This one was 10, but look at the size difference. So this really loosened up and stretched out. I do suggest, instead of, do it 10 inches long before you do your brim up here. This one is going to be made to fit. We get our soaps from a local store, and the soaps are shaped different than what you get in a normal store like Walmart or something. So this is actually made to fit their soaps. But if you want it to fit like a regular bar of Dove, then you'd want to do it 10 inches long, then do 5 rows of garter stitch and then use your cast off. And the soap will fit in long ways. It is almost done. But of course there are different alterations you can make to this. Like I said, no matter how big the soap is that you're wanting to use for it, you can make it accordingly. If you want, you can actually make it longer, make the cuff part, the part you sew up, make it a lot longer, and then you'll have a scrubby mitt. That's another idea that you can do. So I am almost at this other end, which you can see I'm having some difficulty with this yarn, so you want to just find the easiest way that works with you. Now, working with this yarn really wasn't all that fun, but I like the end result. I like that I can make my own little soap scrubby things, because the soap we get, it's homemade soap, and it doesn't have a lot of the extra additives in it, so it doesn't really lather up like a normal soap does. But I could put it in this and get it wet and just go like that, and I have all kinds of lather, and then I can just take the soap out and use this as a mitt and scrub with that. And once you get it to the length you want it, well, once you get this all sewn up, let me get some of these. Okay, I've got a bunch of strings coming from everywhere here. Okay, here we are. I want to take, run that through it, tighten it up, make a bit of a knot there, which I'll tie that. This is my cast on edge, which I'm just tying a knot and cutting it, because this is the inside. Most of the stuff you'd want to weave in, but this stuff, it just really, see, there you go. This one's a little smaller than, well, it's a lot smaller than this one. It's about half the size of this one. But this one, when I made it, it stretched out so much. But this one will fit like the little squares of soap that we get. And you just put your bar soap in, and then you fold this in over top of it. And then you can get it wet, and you can go like that, and it'll lather all up. You can use it with the soap in it, or you can take the soap out after you get it to lather and put your hands in it and just use it as like a scrubby mitt. So this one here was done 15 pegs, and it was measured at 10 inches before I did the cast off, the 5 rows of garter stitch cast off. This one was done 10 pegs wide and measured at 8 inches before I did the garter stitch cast off. So these are 2 different sizes that you can do. Everything is the same with them, other than how many pegs you cast on and how long you measure it. Okay, I really hope that the video was easy to follow and that easy to understand. If you do have any questions or comments, leave them in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.